Namaste, beloveds. This is Mother with Wisdom, aka Valerie Ames, and I am broadcasting something that just came through to me that has crystallized and conceptualized for a while now and is just ready to be given birth to. And so I wrote it up so that I could stay on point with it. And I'm just going to read it and present it how it came through. And then I'm going to read something from Stuart Wiles' best-selling book, Infinite Self, 33 Steps to Reclaiming Your Inner Power. And I'll show you the book. Look at that little baby there in the universe, the blackness, that beautiful, rich, fertile womb of the cosmos. Okay, I'm going to get to that in a moment, but let me begin. The title of this video and what came through with this is called You Are Living Conscious Awareness, being broadcasted universally upon the Earth live stream network. And it blew me away that it wanted to be put in these very specific words. And these words are right now imprinted upon our conscious awareness that is allowing us this expansion. Let me just go, because like I say, it gets deep. Let me break that down. What does that mean in the age of Aquarius? You are a spiritual conscious awareness. You are a spiritual conscious awareness, period. You are this incarnate, which means living in this context. You are an individual spiritual conscious awareness as well as a collective spiritual conscious awareness. A spiritual conscious awareness whose function is to receive, transmit, transform, and transmute the essence of frequency and vibrations into cognitive spectrums of light, which translate into thoughts, desires, feelings, and actions that manifest your unique reality, a reality that is built upon and from the foundation of spiritual universal laws. As I have shared lately, Spirit has me observing astral travel, and this has a much broader quantum metaphysical range or spectrum than most of humanity has grasped at this time. Like most times, when being spirit-led, I have received a frequency, vibration, transmission spectrum of conscious awareness. I have been calling them downloads for over the past 10 years or so that I have been led to share and not just keep it to myself as I used to as a child. Astral travel is the ability to directly stream your conscious awareness where and how you will, based upon your own spiritual, heartfelt desires, knowledge, and discernment of your spiritual identity as you define yourself before, during, and after incarnation. It is the nature of existence itself to teach you what and how to receive, transmit, transform, and transmute what you are able to observe consciously, subconsciously, and unconsciously. What has crystallized all of this into cohesion for me that I am able to share is from a cartoon series called Troll Hunters that I was first introduced to, watch, and observe with one of my own grandsons. I tend to look beyond the surface of most things in this show being no different. being that my grandson loved it beyond reason. I mean, this child could sit here and we watch the episodes over and over and over and over again. Like I said, he loved it beyond reason, and it was being imprinted by it. So, me being Nana, I had to focus in and see what was this that was calling to him in such a manner. For him to receive, transmit, transform, and transmute in his own conscious awareness. What was it downloading? What was it seeding him with? Why was it calling to him, to his consciousness? So, as he was receiving, transmitting, transforming, and transmuting this conscious stream of awareness with his own conscious awareness, and a deep connection, communication, and assimilation of thoughts, feelings, and desires were being exchanged electronically and bioelectronically through the human senses' abilities to receive, transmit, transform, and transmute into the language of conscious awareness everything that it encounters from a disciplined or undisciplined anchor. And that disciplined or undisciplined means consciously aware or unconscious of what you're taking in as an anchor and holding, what you're receiving, what you're attracting on this planet, particularly where you are on the grid on the earth, in the time or season or cycle or age that is happening. All of this is very important to our current conscious awareness and our abilities to take in, to consume light codes, information in a stream of consciousness, and be aware that that is what we're doing. That is what we're doing when we watch TV. That is what we're doing when we listen to music. That is what you're doing when you're watching this video. The idea and title of the broadcasted show, Troll Hunters, took me to several places within my own conscious awareness, memory bank, or Akashic Records. First to the story, Three Billy Goats Gruff, then to the movie Labyrinth, both of them, the one with Pan and the one with David Bowie. Both were very powerful with the messages they were portraying, especially to my children, because I shared watching them, viewing them, and what we got from them together. Then to the movie Labyrinth, both of them, then to the internet trolls. And that just blew me away, that those little pesky people, conscious awareness, who love to go and be tricksters and just argue their point of view, or just play and be deceptive and misleading and bullying and picking, and the little trolls that love to intimidate through the internet. It just, like I said, all of this, excuse me, I felt it coming off. All of this just took on such a deep perspective for me. Let me keep going. Then to the internet trolls, observing the frequencies, the spectrums, the similarities, as well as the differences from all of these different things with the trolls in them, from the Three Billy Goat Gruffs to the both movies Labyrinth and the trolls, and the series Troll Hunters. Observing the frequencies of all of them, the spectrums, the similarities, as well as the differences from the perspective of spiritual, metaphysical, biological, psychological, religious, and governmental. The merging and emerging streams of conscious awareness through each of the individual characters, as well as the show's collective characters, as messages and messengers, which was pretty deep. With the introduction to multiverses, multidimensions, shapeshifting, forces of good and evil, light and dark, shadow, the epic continual battle between them for superiority, to rule the world as they see fit, or from their spiritual conscious awareness or frequency, simply because it is theirs, so it must be right. Even if your conscious will must dominate, overcome, or kill another's conscious will or conscious awareness. The diversity of the characters' individual stories, the merging of relationships by the characters based upon their stories, frequencies, conscious awareness, and what they portrayed, conveyed, and projected was fascinating to observe, to analyze, to discern certain morals, values, truths, and stereotypes. The signs, symbols, and colors were so intriguing due to its being terrestrial, of the earth, of Gaia, of the dirt, of the natural essence, the deep greens, the stone colors. Let me get to it. The level was so intriguing due to its being lower level earth or underworld or subconscious, middle earth or conscious, and higher earth, the unconscious or spiritual conscious, that without form, and celestial being a super consciousness or over consciousness. Portrayed by three below, all very distinct but interrelated and interwoven, independent but interdependent as well. And three below is also a part of the series Troll Hunters, but from an alien perspective, bringing higher technology, higher awareness down into the earth because of things that were going on in the celestial consciousness. And so, like I said, it's just a show, but it's so much more than a show. My thing is, are you being educated or are you just being entertained? And everything has a purpose. And although we may just on the surface be entertained by it, everything has the ability to speak to your conscious awareness, because to communicate, to interact with, because we are of the same frequency, the same essence. The unseen speaks to the unseen. We are more than just the flesh. In this Aquarian age, we need to really understand that water is a conduit. It is a connector. It is a conductor of frequencies and energies and light as well. And we are made of, in the series Troll Hunters, they call the humans flesh bags. And it's just really, like I said, interesting and intricate how all of this is woven and the many things that can be gleaned or harvested from it. It's full of spiritual fruits. And like I said, it's my grandson introduced me to this. And it hits him on a certain level of where he's at, what he can see and what he digests and what he gets and gleans for it. And I can point out a few things that won't overwhelm him or won't be over his head, but he is attracted to it for a certain reason. Okay. Thus solidifying what I am sharing today, that we are living conscious awareness being broadcasted universally upon the Earth's live stream universal network. Everything that is within our Akashic records is the stored contents of our conscious awareness, and we access, travel through it consciously, unconsciously, subconsciously, and superconsciously, just like the different levels of the terrestrial earth. The earth holding all the memories. The trolls and the troll hunters and all the different creatures interwoven through that, communicating, holding certain frequencies of knowledge, exchanging that knowledge, and sometimes being at war because of the knowledge that they have to them seems to clash, rather than it all being relative, it all being water, so to speak, of the same ocean. We have done this so much and so long that we have depleted and exhausted the very mechanism that keeps everything fluid, which causes internal dehydration, barrenness, drought, infertility, wars, disease, death of our conscious awareness. So we have been eroding our own conscious awareness. And, beloveds, everything is accounted for and in order in the universal conscious awareness. It has a direct flow. It has different ages that see different things. And this Aquarius age is the age that waters, that refills, that regenerates the conscious awareness, that helps us be more fluid in our astral receiving, transmitting, transforming, and transmuting. So a lot of things are coming and look as though they're falling apart, and it's just the dead cells going away, and what is going to be born and nourished from those dead cells is what is supposed to be. And it is only being watered and nurtured by this Aquarian age. So learn to observe, learn to be present, but also learn that everything is in motion, meaning the water knows where it's going. Okay, it's not going to run out. It's going to be replenished by the cycles and the seasons of the Mazzaroth that are cosmic, that have been here gazillions of ages before us, and that we are part of, and are just now focused, thinking we're right here in 2021, and we're the seed regenerating, and this seed is our conscious awareness that we incarnated with. And we are a live stream of that awareness, of that spiritual cosmic awareness of existence, of unconditional love, in action, in movement, in motion. Never stagnant, never out of order, always directed and led, regardless of what it appears to us, because each of us is in our own zone. Each of us is in our own conscious awareness. Each of us is in our own projected astral travel, and we only see what we have programmed ourselves to see, or what we have experienced, that are recorded and stored in our Akashic records, in our genetic makeup. And with this Aquarian age, we're all being refilled. And it is, if you are open, it's moving you to expand what you are able to receive, what you are able to, excuse me, what you are able to transmit, transform, and transmute as an anchor of consciousness, divine consciousness. You are an expression of divine consciousness. You are unique in what you receive, in what you transmit, in what you transform, in what you transmute. You are part of the collective that makes the whole frequency, the whole spectrum, the all and the nothing, which is infinite potential. Let me keep going. This is the arrival of the Aquarian age to refill and purify our current abilities to receive, transmit, transform, and transmute the spiritual conscious awareness that is streaming throughout the universe for our health and wealth as individuals and as a collective. And beloveds, as I'm reading this, it brings me to mind of a fish tank, an aquarium, and all the care that is needed. And that if you don't change that water out, it becomes stagnant and everything within it dies. And so you have to exchange the waters out and you have to purify the water. And that is what the Aquarian age is doing. When you see the symbology of the Aquarian holding that pitcher of water and just dumping that water in, that is a stream of water. That stream that is being poured into, that is refilling, is purifying our conscious awareness. And that is why some of us are more receptive to these downloads. And that is why some of us understand what we are observing. And we're sharing what we're observing. And we're sharing it not to, but we're sharing it to help you expand your conscious awareness, to make you, not make you, but to serve as a catalyst for you to observe deeper, from a deeper perspective of yourself as a vessel that is able to receive. There is no differentiation between the receiving, the transmitting, the transforming, and the transmuting, other than the uniqueness of the individual vessel that is receiving the downloads. There are different abilities. Some are able just to do a little bit at a time, and others are able to do oceans or planet full. It is just the nature of the individual. But it is what all of us are here to do. Everything in existence receives, transmits, transforms, and transmutes. And that is the definition of unconditional love. You don't have to look for these airy-fairy, romantic, blah, 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 blah. It's just that simple. It's direct communication with self. It's receiving information from the self. It's transmitting information back to the self. It's transforming the information that is received, meaning that it's breaking it down so it can be digested and the nourishment can happen to the soul. And then it's transmuting what is there and eliminating what no longer serves. So it's biological, spiritual, metaphysical, psychological, in each of your bodies. You do this. Each of us is a vessel for this live stream conscious awareness. Each of us will receive, transmit, transform, and transmute from our own individual and collective abilities to discern and make judgments on what we receive, on how we are to transmit, transform, and transmute, or basically digest, eliminate, inhale, exhale, broadcast our conscious awareness through our actions of being, living conscious awareness, being broadcasted universally upon the Earth's live stream network. Our trolls, demons, thoughts, desires, projections, manifested actions must be observed, stalked, hunted, caged, domesticated, healed, converted, killed, neutralized, returned to the abyss of infinite potentiality. May we become conscious that this is unconditional love existing as itself, staring as itself, expanding and contracting, multiplying itself, and being fruitful in the process. This is the death, birth, rebirth cycle expressed in the conscious awareness being broadcasted universally upon each of us as a live stream network. And to answer your unspoken question, yes, I got all of that as though I wrote it myself from Troll Hunters. Okay, that is that, and you can rewind it and go through it. I'm also going to post it on Facebook. I will put some links to Troll Hunter in the description box. I'll put my link for my Facebook page in the description box, and I will put the link for this book in the description box. I'm going to, the title is Infinite Self, 33 Steps to Reclaiming Your Inner Power, and it's by Stuart Wilde. And I'm just going to read a couple of the chapters. They're not very long at all. I'm going to read the first chapter, or step 1, as it is called, and it's titled, I Am God. The first of the 33 steps is called I Am God. You may wonder, who's this little twerp saying I am God? What I mean by it is that you have to accept the idea of the God force being you. Obviously, if the God force is everywhere, it must be within you. But most people either have no concept of God at all, or they eternalize God, creating a God outside of themselves. Engaging the intellect to comprehend God, they are required to project the idea away from themselves. So they'll say, this person is God, these ideas are God, money is God, glamour is God, whatever. The God force is within. Internalize that God force and accept that it is flowing through you. When you perceive God as a force outside of you, you can't really use its energy properly. Once you internalize the force, and it is not just a vague intellectual concept of the God within, then you can move to actually feeling the God force inside of you. At that point, a truly awesome power of perception and goodness enters your life. There's a guided method to this journey of ours. It's not as haphazard as most think. I believe that the infinite you, that higher energy dwelling inside your being, had a vision of what it was going to be getting itself into in this lifetime. I don't believe that you came here by accident, that you suddenly plopped into a diaper and thought, what the hell am I doing here? I believe that your evolution here on the earth plane is so powerful, so sacred, so spiritually dynamic and special that the infinity within you had an overview. And that is what I call the superconscious or the overconscious, highest celestial level in the conscious awareness. Okay. In the ancient teachings, it was said that the divinity, the higher self, as some call it, could see the first 13 years of its upcoming earth life. Not in every minor detail, but it could see the family you were going to be born into, your father's and mother's strengths and weaknesses. Perhaps it could see that you would be an orphan and be raised by your grandparents or live in an orphanage. That infinite self could see the genetic code and what physical disciplines or traits would influence your life. It could understand the mindset and emotion of the tribal situation or culture you would find yourself in. So it knew approximately how your life would develop from the initial programming you would receive as a child. That's very, very powerful, beloveds. This idea of the infinite self's overview of life prior to birth is quite radical compared to modern religious ideas, but it doesn't necessarily contradict them. It just says that the infinity inside you had a perception prior to your birth. So before you incarnated, there was conscious awareness. You were conscious awareness. You had conscious awareness thought available to you. It just says that infinity is inside you. Infinity inside you had a perception prior to your birth. It seems reasonable to me. As you develop awareness, you can see that people are not just a mind or a personality full of tribal beliefs or, of course, just a body. For the most part, they are in fact a feeling, frequency. If you train yourself to see the subtle, etheric life force from trees, sooner or later you begin to see it emanating from humans as well. Then you'll be able to watch their feelings oscillating back and forth. As you watch, you'll know a lot of things about them. And beloveds, that is what the natives and the indigenous ones know as the breath of life blowing through the trees, or brother and sister wind, or depending on where you're from, grandmother or grandfather wind. Wind is the God's breath that was breathed into us where we became living souls. So understand all of this and its connection, its very deep connections from Akashic knowledge, from knowledge that has been passed down. And I love the word. Then you'll be able to watch their feelings oscillating back and forth. From watching the trees. The trees come together and they have a crown up top. And they allow the light to come through. They communicate with each other above the tips of the branches, to the trunks of the trees, to the roots that are buried within the ground, and some that are above the ground. Then you'll be able to watch their feelings oscillating back and forth. And as you watch, you'll know a lot of things about them. If you were a person's higher infinite self, you would be able to tell from even a limited human perception, hey, these tendencies are possible in the next 3 months, 12 months, 10 years. But I imagine a human's perception is minuscule compared to the uncluttered, infinite perception that resides in you. And beloveds, that can be seen by the way we decimate the forest. We cut down the trees. We're wasteful with what we get from it and everything. We don't know how to receive, transmit, transform, and transmute all of the resources that are given to us. We're like children. We're wasteful. We have no appreciation and gratitude for it because we don't know how to see it. We don't know how to receive it from a higher perspective. We see it only from the lower perspective, which is greed and what can I get from it and what is it going to do for me. So, if a human can perceive people's feelings and be aware of their probability patterns and destiny, how much greater would that infinite power within you be able to see what tendencies lie ahead, what difficulties and what strengths? Anyway, it doesn't matter if it had an overview or not. Here we are, and we'll make it into a fine and powerful journey nonetheless. Thus we have the oncoming climate changes, those who believe in it and those who don't, and those who are willing to do something about it and those who don't care. Your first point of power is to embrace the concept of I am God. At first glance, the idea seems egotistical, but you're not embracing the idea of I am God to talk about it or to show off and elicit the admiration of your godlike qualities. Rather, you are silently internalizing the idea, accepting that the God force is within you as a spiritual feeling. Through this simple process, you connect yourself to the all-knowing, entering a mysterious and wonderful world that is usually beyond the ego's perception of life. This internalizing of the God force can feel awkward, as we are brought up in what is either a godless intellectual world, or we are taught to see God as a force outside of ourselves. But it is your first discipline of power, so it is a necessary process. That brings me to the miseducation of Lauryn Hill, where she says most intellectuals do not believe in God, but they fear us just the same. If you currently have a concept of God outside of yourself, then mentally bring God home. Allow its enormous power back into your heart. And even though you may not necessarily feel the infinity of the God force within you as yet, at least you can imagine it there, visualize it there. This idea doesn't transcend any beliefs. You can still be a good Christian and believe in Jesus Christ, but believe in Christ's energy inside you rather than outside you. An intellectual concept of God outside you disempowers you. Hear that, receive that, beloveds. Be able to transmit that, be able to transform that, and be able to transmute all the stuff that doesn't align with that in your sphere, in your frequency, in your spectrum of conscious awareness of yourself. An intellectual concept of God outside you disempowers you because what you're saying is, I don't have a command of my destiny. This means that you don't believe you can create energy and make a difference. You can't get action oriented and change your destiny. You can't believe in prosperity, act strongly and wisely, and get more money. The second move in this process is to respect the evolution you find yourself in, which means accepting where you find yourself. Fighting against or bemoaning your circumstances crying over the fact that you are not as privileged as others, crying because you are privileged and perhaps spoiled, being upset because you don't, have all the physical strength or knowledge you think you need. All that is wasted energy and disrespectful of the spiritual you. It's pointless, self-indulgent, and weak. If you are to become a spiritual warrior and to honor the God force within, you will agree to accept circumstances as you find them, remembering, of course, that almost everything can be improved and that things change. What you can't change, you probably don't need to change. You can just go beyond worrying about it instead. Say to yourself, the infinity inside me, that part of me that is God, loves and respects this human evolution of mine. It loves and respects where I find myself in my current circumstances. So I will do the same, even though the circumstances of my life right now may be less than the best. And all these things are a part of my evolution. I can transcend and go beyond them. That is the story of Job. That is also what is presented in this troll series that I was speaking about. In pulling back from the ego's view of things and seeing life instead from an infinite view, you detach. You are not fighting yourself or life, creating unnecessary negative energy through your thoughts and feelings. In this simple and courageous act of acceptance, you begin an instantaneous healing process. So, this is physician heal thyself by observing and being in the flow and not resisting. Accept where you are and overcome that. Use it as your obstacle course, and it's a marathon. And you're going to hand it off to another part of yourself to take over. If you're surrounded by a bunch of incredibly negative, rather grim people, sometimes called relatives, or perhaps friends or co-workers, whatever, rather than fighting that ugliness around you and seeing it as a misfortune, love it. Look at the people, look at the job, your circumstances, the family, the tribe, your home, and say, thank you, God. Thank you for sending me these teachers. They are driving me crackers, yet what they're teaching me is not to react. They strengthen me by teaching me to transmute negative energy into positive energy. Using these people, I will convert irritation, hatred, and reaction into at least a neutral energy of passivity, or if possible, love. These assholes are my venerated teachers. I am truly grateful to God for sending me so many assholes. Thank you for allowing me to be here on the earth plane. What an incredible experience. Isn't it fantastic that almost free of charge, I am surrounded by 55 assholes who are going to teach me a lot about myself. If you want to claim that infinite power, you will want to move away from the more rigid definitions of the ego. And let's face it, the ego is rather self-indulgent, isn't it? It wants everything to be perfect. It wants you to be recognized. It wants life to be guaranteed. It wants things cozy. It wants to be paid more than it's actually worth. It wants a lot of stuff that isn't reasonable. To become free and activate the infinite self, you have to agree to ditch the dogma of the ego for a more fluid and open approach. Otherwise, you are perpetually stuck in the agony of the ego. So all that pain that you're you feel and you know and you experience, that's from the ego. And the ego is addicted to that pain, to that drama, to that suffering. And it's going to keep on producing it because that's what it does. That's what it knows. And once again, the ego is your asshole best teacher. Okay? So stop hating. Stop hating it. I had to learn. Stop hating your ego, Valerie. The first move is to at least embrace a neutral position. Realize that circumstances are neither good nor bad. The people who are driving you crazy are neither good nor bad. Your conditions may seem uncomfortable to the ego, but in effect, they are neither good nor bad. They just are. Even if conditions are grim, from the definition of the infinite self, it's all a part of your learning experience, your challenge. It's a part of being here. The concept of I am God says, I am eternal. I am beyond the definitions of the ego. I am beyond death. So therefore, I will gradually go beyond fear. Fear is a disease of the ego. Negative energy and what we consider unpleasant experiences are just contradictions of the ego's opinion. I talk about that in my book, Weight Loss for the Mind. I'll deal with it here in the later steps as we talk about changing your view of the world. Naturally, there is a great spiritual maturity in accepting where you are, who you are, and what you are. Second, you have to accept that it is you who creates the major part of your reality and destiny. Okay, part of your destiny was pre-written when you got here in your genetic coding and tribal heritage, then shaped by the things you were taught in your upbringing. But most of it can be changed, adapted, modified for the better. Again, that is everything that you receive, everything that you transmit, you can transform and transmute. It's part of the process. It's part of the maturing. It's part of expanding your conscious awareness. But most of it can be changed, adapted, and modified for the better. So, by internalizing the God force, you begin to comprehend that the God force within you can be expressed outwards, meaning that the force of spirit can be directed by you in any direction you wish in order to change your life for the better. And that again relates to what I was speaking of with the astral travel and the astral projection and learning to direct that, to hone that in the direction of the higher self. You have been given the power. It isn't someplace else, up a mountain, in a building, or on a little cushion. It's right here in your heart. And you are not a little person lower down than it, one who has no power, no volition, and no ability. Once the God force is inside you, and you begin to accept the infinity within, your power grows. Otherwise, you have to rely on the power of your intellect and perceptions of the ego's world. And you have to compete with other minds and egos in the marketplace of life. That's a sad way of going about things. And that is where we have been, beloveds. That is where we find ourselves expanding out of. That is where we are right now. We're meant to recognize it. And so many of us, like I said, the ego mind is saying we're suffering and blah, 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 blah. This is what we need to observe. That this pain is within the ego. It is not within the spiritual self. It's not within that God force. That God force is within you. It's within your heart. And you need to learn to project that, to use that as your source of energy rather than the ego. You are God, force within. Affirm that several times a day. Say, I am the God force within. I can't necessarily feel it as yet, but I'm imagining it in the meantime. That's the first step in reclaiming your power. Now, Spirit led me to the next portion, step 23. Always maintain freshness, watch nature, align to nature. As you exist in your neighborhood, in your job, in your home, and with your friends, you have to constantly pump energy to sustain the situation. When you feel bored and fed up and stuck, what it means is that you have used up the energy of the place where you find yourself. You know how when you first go to a new neighborhood, it's really exciting. There's a really cool cafe on the corner, meet people. There's a Jamaican band playing on the bar on Saturday night, and you're really pumped up. And after a while, it all starts to lose that energy. And you go into the bar where the band's playing, and there's a cockroach walking across the wall, and the little cafe isn't so cool, and the people aren't so neat anymore. This is because if you are alive and fresh, you use up energy. If you're just tick-tocking along at the slug in a puddle speed, you can stay in a place forever. It really doesn't make any difference. But if your energy is alive, you're going to use up people and places and philosophies, different diets, disciplines. You're going to change cars, change your clothes, keep staying fresh. And when you see the energy around you dying, move, change, or enliven it. Paint it a different color. Move into a different neighborhood. Act differently. Watch nature because it's your greatest teacher. It moves and it flows and it moves on again. That is that Aquarius, baby. This is that Aquarius energy of the age we're in right now and what it's teaching us and showing us how to be fluid. Be like water, baby, like Bruce Lee said. There is this incredible beauty out there in the mountains, in the forest, to teach you its silence, its beauty, and its humility. Stay attuned, stay aligned to that. Adjust to the rhythm of the seasons, understanding that winter is not the time to be starting a new project. In winter, you turn inwards. Think, mend things, get ready. Now that spring is here, you can pull energy from the sun, the flowers, the rushing streams, and the buds that sprout. Realize that now is the best time to start the project. Move and put your energy into the spring. Now comes the summer. It is harvest time. You will collect the money that is due to you, sign the contracts, and complete the projects you began in the spring. When you see the leaves turn golden brown and the autumn or fall is upon you, take time to think in terms of, hey, what kind of crud did I collect this year? What needs to fall away? As you watch the leaves fall, feel the process within your heart. Yay, I can release things. I don't need to hold on. This stuff is finished with. This stuff is stagnant. This relationship is over. The things you finished with, pass them on to someone else. Some of the things may be valuable, or you may want to sell them. If not, just give them away. They're on rental for the God Force, and you give them to somebody else. Say, hey, here, I finished with this coat. You have it, Harry. By watching nature and aligning with it, you realign to that infinity within you. Nature has no concept of death. That's why the world of animals is pristine and beautiful. An animal can experience momentary fear as it gets itself into a situation where it is vulnerable. But the cow in the field isn't sitting there thinking about its life insurance policy. The cow is just being. It is. It's alive, munching grass, walking around, standing under a shady tree. That's the eternity of the cow. That is the eternity of the raven. That's the eternity of the little crawly things in the earth. They are free of ego, so they don't have a concept of dying. Therefore, they are free of agony. From nature, we learn serenity and we learn security. We learn a stability that comes from moving and flowing. As you stay aligned to nature as much as possible, you learn from it. You may want to try the discipline that I tried, which was rising at 4 every morning for 3 years and walking in silence in the forest while it was still dark. You don't have to do it for 3 years if you don't fancy it. You can do it for a week. But by noticing and staying with the natural rhythms of the planet, the sunset or the sunrise, if you're up before dawn, you're ready. You're in a quiet energy. The rest of the world isn't up. Their ego and their mind haven't polluted the psychic atmosphere around you. Then you're ready for the day. I'm eternal. I'm immortal. Here comes the sun. I'm ready. And you watch that and learn from it. You constantly police what is fresh, what needs changing, and what needs energy. If a friendship is starting to fall apart, it's probably because you haven't put any energy into it. So call that person, invite him or her out, and meet for coffee. Put energy into the places where things are getting sluggish. Anything you finished with, release it and let it go. There's a little rule that a teacher friend of mine, Denise Lynn, lives by. Her rule is that anything you haven't used or handled that is touched in the last 6 months and that you're not going to use in the next few months, get rid of it. Give it away. What that says is that you will only surround yourself with things that are alive with energy, things you touch, love, and maintain, things that you are using. Everything else you're going to liberate yourself from the weight of it. In this way, you remain simple. Look at the birds. They don't have garages full of stuff. They're simple. And they know they wake up in the morning and they're not thinking, how am I going to make it today? They just fly around and peck here and peck there, and the God force provides for them. Understand that there's an enormous abundance, so keep your life uncluttered, uncomplicated. Keep it simple and ordered, and constantly move toward the simplicity of the Tao. Come with me to the next step, and I'll show you some concepts that will liberate you from 90% of the anguish in the world. And the next place Spirit wanted me to share from this book is step number 28, mental discipline. Sometimes being very intellectual is a huge spiritual disadvantage. If you are very clever, you tend to dwell in the mind. It's reasonable and pleasing to do so. It's the same as if you're very good at running. You may find yourself 6 hours a day on the track, enjoying your abilities. Being very intellectual is a hindrance, but it's not the death blow to the spiritual quest. If you're not very bright, take a moment to kneel down and pray and thank God. It's a great gift to be a bit dim. In the Tao, they revered the disadvantaged. There's a strange concept in the writings that say the tallest tree is the first one to get cut down. The crooked, gnarly tree that is ugly and bent is of no use to the carpenter, so it grows for 1,000 years. The cripple doesn't have to go to war. He isn't required to perform. So the cripple is revered, the same as the gnarled, crooked tree. The Tao says, to remain whole, be twisted. To become straight, let yourself be bent. To become full, be hollow. Of course, hollow, excuse me. Of course, hollow means free of stuff. If you don't have a lot of intellect, you're free. Because the journey from ego to spirit is the journey from intellect to feeling. In a general sense, men deal with copious amounts of intellectuality and less with feeling. So their journey is one out of the intellect into feeling and beyond, into a metaphysical, spiritual perception of the world. Women generally are more aligned to feelings. Their journey is really to quiet those feelings and go beyond their insecurity. Oh. It's interesting that we're required to be secure in a dimension that is intrinsically insecure. The journey of the female is different from the journey of the male. The journey of the male is one of outgoing, pushing, conquering, ejaculating outwards, winning people over, selling things. The woman's journey is, generally speaking, quieter and more nurturing. That's why she lives longer. In many incorporates, it may incorporate some of the masculine traits, but more often than not, her spiritual trial is entering into this physical dimension in which she is often physically smaller and weaker than others. She has to develop a metaphysical, psychological, intellectual security inside a dimension in which she is intrinsically insecure. So the woman's spiritual quest is to process her feelings, especially negative ones, and become a radiant light of positivity. The mental discipline for someone who is very intellectual is the idea of not making your mind God and becoming arrogant. Then you have to somehow pull out of too much thinking. Excess thinking is a disease. It's what I call overthinking on life. When you get too mentally involved in questioning and intellectual activity, it keeps you from tapping into who you really are. You are a feeling. When you depart this earth, you depart as a feeling. You do not depart as 21 volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Intellect is useful because it can earn you money and help you study. It can help you remember things. But in the end, you are a spiritual being and therefore a feeling, not an intellectual concept. Mental discipline breaks out into several different subheadings. The first is you've got to agree to feel secure in a dimension that's intrinsically insecure. The second is you've got to cure yourself of the disease of overthinking on life. So when you find your intellect going potty, stop it. Start to push your feelings into things. That's nothing more than visualizing the circumstances. Let's say at the office and asking yourself how it feels. How does the sales director feel? How does the campaign feel? How does my job feel? And beloveds, that is the whole point of this video, with the troll hunter being the theme. I tend to overthink things a lot, and I'm often redirected back into cartoons or things with a lot of humor to it to reawaken or re-nourish my feelings so that I can see it from a different aspect of my first observation of it, which allows me to grow, which allows the maturity and the expansion of my conscious awareness, which means I'm accepting the downloads. I'm accepting the refilling and the regeneration of my conscious awareness, this life stream. I'm no longer resisting. I'm no longer resentful. I'm no longer angry. I'm no longer bitter. I'm now allowing unconditional love by connecting with that God force and understanding that that God force is not an intellectual construct. It's not an intellectual matrix. It's not an intellectual game. It's not an intellectual thing that needs to be contemplated. It's a feeling that needs to be given birth to and rebirthed. Because the God force permeates everything. Everything gives off a feeling. Even inanimate objects give off a feeling. How does this airplane feel? Do you think I get on an airplane and just wander along in the great crapshoot of life? No, no way. I look at the energy of everything before I get on. I don't get on if I don't feel all right about it, even if it means I'm going to miss my appointments. Once, years and years ago, I didn't feel good about a flight I was taking from London to Geneva. I got on anyway because I was young and unsure of my perception and because I was committed to getting there. And sure enough, going over the Alps, one of the engines blew. It wasn't a life-threatening situation because we just turned around and went back to London on one engine. But we flew about an hour and a half to the Swiss border, then an hour and a half back to London. When we waited 2 hours while they dragged out another plane, and we finally made the journey down there. I shouldn't have gotten off that plane. I knew it before I got on. So, when things don't feel right, be careful. When you don't know what action to take, do nothing. Remember that and put it on your fridge. When you don't know, don't go. And also remember, when in doubt, know not. Not, N-O-W-T, is a term from the north of England meaning nothing. If you don't know what to do, wait. Build energy, clean things, organize things. Seek out more information, but don't act until you know that you have to act. For me, I go to sleep, which may sound weird to a lot of people, but as a child, when situations got to be overwhelming, go to your room, go to sleep. That was my resting. After a whooping or a beating or a dramatic scene, I went to sleep. After going out and playing and having fun and everything else, I went to sleep. So sleep for me is a very sacred, restorative space. Think about this. If you operate out of feelings, you're never really going to have to make any more decisions. Decision making for most is an intellectual process. Either something feels right and you proceed, or it feels wrong and you don't proceed. Or there's a neutral feeling and you either don't proceed or you move very slowly and cautiously. So either it feels right to marry Harry and you say, I love you, Harry. Yes, I'll marry you Thursday. Or you say, no, there's no maybe if you don't know, but wait. If it feels wrong, definitely wait. Under this discipline, decision-making changes from the intellectual turmoil of conjecture and the ego's agenda to, hey, does it feel right? If it feels right, proceed gingerly, carefully, and slowly. Keep asking yourself as you progress and perceive, and evaluate the results of your decisions as they manifest. Does it still feel right? If you're an intellectual person, your mental discipline is to ask yourself 6 times a day, how does it feel? How does this taxi feel? How does this office feel? How does this cinema feel? Look for the feeling. Bit by bit, you can wrestle your subtle feelings into supporting you and their knowledge and ability so that your intellect is not dominating your life. The intellect will suck to you ugly energy, personal criticism, and judgment. It will make you dissatisfied. You will have a triumph, and 5 minutes later, the intellect will trash that triumph into nothing. It will show you all the things you missed out. You made 20,000, but you could have made 24,000. The intellect likes to bitch and feel sorry for itself. If you don't control it, it will drive you nuts. The journey from the intellect to the infinite self involves wrestling the intellect into stillness. Your meditation, disciplines, quiet time, and introspection are vital components. Without those, it's very hard to get the ego or intellect to back off and allow you to feel your spirituality. That spirituality is beautiful. It's enormous. It has vast energy and power, vast amounts of information. Thus, the troll hunters, beloveds. The intellect, Valerie, why are you sitting up here watching this cartoon? Why are you, what, girl? But it's beyond the mind, it's beyond the intellect. The heart says, no, we finna watch this. Because this got something for us. Ooh, this means that and that means this. I didn't see that before. I didn't connect those dots before. Where did that come from? I didn't see that before. Cartoon, beyond the intellect. Straight up in that God force. No ego. As you seek the feeling of things, you will gradually be able to replace the intellect. You have to understand that coming from the intellect, you're always guessing. It doesn't matter if all the graphs and charts tell you that this and that is supposed to happen. There are lots of people out there who have lost millions because of some squiggly line on a page. Previous experience doesn't necessarily describe what's going to happen next. Hear that, beloveds, and process it with all your heart. Previous experience doesn't necessarily describe what's going to happen next, but your feelings know. And we get so trapped. I'm speaking about myself specifically right now. It's been ages since I've been in a relationship, a romantic, intimate relationship, specifically based on that previous experience, not necessarily describing what's going to happen next. Because I get into these exchanges of energy, whether I consider them unrequited or fact on or hardcore, or me being forward or aggressive or whatever, and aspects start happening or the mind, the ego, well, you know that happened last time, and you see how this is happening? There go red flag. Look, 1, 2, 3, boom, tick, tick, boom. And I'm like, never mind. I'm going the other way. And this is what we're being told. Understand that time is fluid. And just because that happened 99 times, don't mean it's going to happen 100 times. Allow your feelings to guide you. Set your boundaries, but allow yourself to flow. Allow yourself to move and be fluid. Be water. And be your kind of water, your version of water. Whether it's sweet, salty, whatever. Don't let nobody tell you how to flow. Be you. Go at your pace. What's comfortable to you, what feels right to you. Okay. So rather than having to go through life guessing which is what the intellect has to do, go with your feelings. If you're already deeply in your feelings, then purify them. Become stronger. That means go deep, beloveds. Get into control of your life so that your emotions are solid. Stand silent and tall inside your feelings, and there's your discipline. Don't worry about the things that are coming down the line. You won't be on that line when they show up. So many people I find their life is absolutely brilliant, but they can't bring themselves to admit it. If you look at your life, you'll probably find 3, 5, 20, 50 things that are absolutely marvelous. You have a roof over your head, you have some money to spend, a nice family, nice friends, some lovely pursuits. Your body is ticking along pretty good. You've got a car to bumble around in. What else are you going to need? What you need is serenity, not a bunch of mental drivel that moans and groans and makes you dissatisfied. You're with one and constantly, you're with one person and you're constantly wondering if it would be better with the other person. Then you go to that person and find it's exactly the same. You're off to the next one. It drives you crazy. Too much thinking is a terrible disease. It brings on awfully chronic symptoms such as seriousness. I don't mind arrogance and self-indulgence, as I'm arrogant and self-indulgent sometimes. And I don't mind stupidity, as I've done loads of stupid things in this life. But seriousness bothers me. I flee from serious people as fast as my chubby little legs can carry me. I find seriousness close to revolting. This life isn't serious. It's a comedy. It's an awesomely beautiful journey, but it certainly isn't serious. Serious is an egotistical concept. It comes from several factors. One is insecurity, another is self importance, whereby insignificant people use seriousness to make themselves seem more than they actually are. Sometimes seriousness is used as a manipulation or as a way of imposing from above on people that one considers inferior. With seriousness comes a lot of judgment and a lot of light and a lack of light and laughter and God force. It is a very stony path to take. We see that right now in what we're experiencing. Globally. Sometimes seriousness reflects a temperament that is less than gracious and magnanimous to others. It can be a form of intellectual snobbery. You can always tell serious people a mile off. They walk funny. The cheeks of their bum are puckered like they're holding on to a carrot. That was such a visual, and I'm a visual person, so forgive me. I think they feel selected by God to hold a carrot up their rear until death. That's why you always see carrots growing near the graves of serious people. If you're too serious, start to laugh a lot, play, hang out with children, put on silly clothes, do lighthearted things, cut people a lot of slack, including yourself, become big in your feelings, and seriousness melts in the light of your heart's newfounded goodness. And I'm going to add the word goofiness, because sometimes goofiness is just the way. It's just the way that makes everything okay. And That goofiness allows you to rejoice and laugh at yourself, to merge with your inner child, to be the clown, to be as silly as you want to be, and to still be lovable and laughable, and to just be whole. Because that goofiness allows the wholeness. Is the expectation of being perfect is not there. It's just like in the towel with that twisted tree, the ugly tree. There's no serious requirements of a goofy person. They can just, she goofy, just being goofy. And so there are times when I revert to overt goofiness. There are times when, as you see the changes with the wigs, the hair, the makeup, whatever, because it takes me out of my intellectual seriousness. And it allows me to just be. And people are like, don't care. Don't care because that's that God force in me. Being goofy, goofy Valerie. She different. Yes, thank God. And I hold on to it. And I'm expanding it. And I'm enjoying it. I'm no longer hiding it as much. But I'm still, what's the word? I'm still enjoying it. But I'm loving the way that Spirit is dealing with me now. And when I say the way Spirit is dealing with me now, that means me accepting more of my own spiritual self and the expansion of my conscious awareness. And understanding that this kind of wisdom and discernment I do deserve. And I do deserve to not only receive it, but to share it, to transmit it, to transform it, and to transmute it. And it's not about getting personal recognition for it. Because over the years, I'm just seeing things float back like residuals to me, like royalties, just filling my coffers in the acknowledgement that where you were was right where you needed to be. And what you were doing and what you were sharing, what you were receiving and transmitting was right where you needed to be. And don't worry if somebody took it to another level, shined it up and put it out there. You did your part. Allow them to do their part. And if they got paid for it, better for them. Your payment comes in a different currency. You gonna get yours. Don't resent them for their shyness. Yours gets put inside and shines outward. It touches all. Stay in your lane. Be good with yourself. Love on yourself. Touch yourself. Tap yourself. Know that you are worthy. And if you don't have nobody to hold you, hold yourself. I got a call from my aunt today, and she's had a rough existence. She's manifested a lot of hardships with her choices. And she's at an age now where her body is failing her. And she's starting to sound like my mother. I'm tired. I'm tired of being here. I ain't got nobody else to talk to. I ain't got nobody to call. Don't nobody love me. And I have to remind her, love yourself. Be here as a role model. You got great grandchildren. Be here for them. Speak love and light into them. Bless them with your wisdom, with your love, with your perspective. If that's all you got to give, that's good enough. It's worthy of being received, transmitted, transformed, and transmuted. So be love, beloveds. Be love and be blessed. Namaste, and I love us all. And again, I was reading from Stuart Little's Infinite Self, 33 Steps to Reclaiming Your Inner Power. And again, I will put this in the description. So, thank you.